The snow had started as a whisper, soft and harmless, when Martha Hale looked out her kitchen window that evening. She'd been scrubbing the last of the supper dishes, humming quietly to herself, when she noticed the flakes thickening, slowly at first, then in furious, swirling curtains. By the time she pulled on her coat to check the firewood pile, the wind had begun to howl like a living thing. Frostpine Road was vanishing under a white blanket. The mountains around Hollow Creek, normally tranquil and postcard beautiful, had turned into a wall of blinding snow. It was the kind of storm that could swallow a person whole. Martha hurried back inside, her breath fogging in the cold. Her house, more of a cabin really, was old, draughty, and far too big for one person. She'd been living there alone since her husband, Walter, passed away 5 winters ago. The two had built the place together with salvaged wood and long weekends of sweat and laughter. Now every creak in the floorboards felt like his ghost shifting nearby, keeping her company. She moved to the fireplace and fed the flames another log. The orange light flickered across her lined face, kind, weathered, and strong, in that quiet way only people who've lived through hardship can be. She sighed and glanced at the old radio on the counter. The announcer's voice crackled through the static. State Highway 22 is closed due to whiteout conditions. All travelers are advised to stay off the mountain roads. Visibility near Frostpine is near 0. Martha turned it off. She'd been through storms like this before, though not many this fierce. Usually the tourists who rented nearby lodges were smart enough to head down to town before the weather trapped them. But she still worried. She knew how unforgiving the mountains could be. By midnight, the snow had buried the porch steps. Martha was setting out extra candles when a sudden, desperate pounding rattled the front door. She froze. Out here, miles from the next neighbor, nobody knocked at that hour unless it was an emergency. The pounding came again, louder this time. Martha hurried to the door, pulling it open just enough to see through the blizzard. Her heart leapt. There, barely visible through the storm, stood a group of people, bundled in expensive winter coats, their faces pale and desperate. "Please!" a man shouted over the wind. "Our convoy slid off the road. The cars are stuck. We can't go any farther." "Good heavens!" Martha gasped. "Get in, all of you, quickly!" They stumbled inside, 15 in total. Snow clung to their coats and lashes. Some were coughing. One young woman's hands were blue from the cold. Martha shut the door hard against the storm and ushered them toward the fireplace. "Sit, sit," she said, rushing to throw more logs on the fire. "You're frozen to the bone." The group huddled close, shivering as steam rose from their coats. It didn't take long for Martha to notice they weren't ordinary travelers. Their clothes, watches, and even their mannerisms whispered of wealth. The tall man who spoken first wore a coat that looked like it cost more than her monthly income. Another woman had diamond studs glinting faintly in the candlelight. Still, Martha didn't ask questions. She brought out a stack of mismatched mugs, filled them with steaming tea, and passed them around. "Thank you, ma'am," said the tall man, his voice soft but commanding. "I'm Henry Dalton. We were on our way to Aspen for a summit. The storm caught us off guard." Martha smiled faintly. "Well, Mr. Dalton, I don't know about summits, but you'll be safe here tonight. Storm's too wild to risk the road." As the group thawed, they began to talk among themselves, cautious at first, then more openly. They were indeed millionaires, perhaps even billionaires, investors, philanthropists, tech founders, 15 titans of industry who had been traveling together in a convoy of luxury SUVs for a private retreat. But at that moment, none of that mattered. The storm had stripped them of their titles, power, and pride. They were cold, hungry, and scared, like anyone else. Martha moved to the small kitchen, rummaging through her pantry. She had only a few cans of soup, some bread, and a bag of rice. It wasn't much for 16 people. Still, she managed. She filled a pot, stirred what she could together, and smiled when the scent of warm broth filled the air. "Not fancy," she said when she brought the pot to the table, "but it'll do." They gathered around the old wooden table, steam rising between them. Henry lifted his spoon, hesitated, then gave her a small nod. "This might be the best meal I've had in years," he said quietly. Martha laughed. "Now I know you're lying." But she could see it in their eyes. He meant it. As the night deepened, the house grew alive with soft conversation and laughter. One of the younger women, Claire, helped Martha wash the dishes. Another man, Mr. Choi, fixed the squeaky door hinge in the kitchen. Someone even found Martha's old guitar in the corner, tuning it clumsily before strumming a few awkward chords. It was strange and beautiful, the sight of people who usually commanded private jets now sweeping her floor and drying dishes. Later, when the storm howled louder than ever, the power flickered out completely. Martha lit every candle she had and passed them around. Shadows danced across the room like ghosts, and for a while the world felt like it had shrunk to that small pool of warmth and light. Henry sat beside her on the hearth. "You live alone here?" he asked. She nodded. "Hasn't been easy since my husband passed. But this house, it's home. He built most of it with his own hands." Henry glanced around at the sturdy beams, the stone hearth, the framed photo of a younger Martha and her husband smiling in the snow. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "There's more heart in these walls than in any mansion I've ever owned." Martha chuckled, embarrassed. "You're too kind. It's drafty and old, but it keeps me warm." The two sat in silence for a while, watching the fire burn low. Then Henry said something she didn't expect. "You know," he murmured, "we spend our lives chasing comfort. But tonight, this here feels more real than anything I've had in years." Martha turned to him, her eyes kind but firm. "Comfort's easy to buy," she said. "Warmth isn't. Warmth only comes from people." He smiled at that, quietly, thoughtfully. By 3 a.m. the snow still raged outside. Most of the guests had drifted to sleep on the couches and rugs, wrapped in spare blankets. Martha stayed up, tending the fire, listening to their breathing. She thought about how strange life was, how the world could turn upside down in a heartbeat, throwing millionaires into a housekeeper's arms. When the last log burned low, she whispered a prayer of thanks to the storm for bringing them safely, and for reminding her that no matter how small her world seemed, kindness always made it bigger. Before dawn, Henry stirred and found her still awake. "Martha," he said quietly, "you've shown us something tonight we didn't know we'd lost." She smiled faintly. "What's that?" "Grace," he said simply. "And goodness." She shook her head. "All I did was open the door." "Exactly," he said. "And that's something most people forget to do." Outside, the wind finally began to die down. The first hint of dawn touched the snow with silver. Inside, 15 millionaires slept under one humble roof, safe, warm, and changed, though none of them yet realized just how much that single night would alter their lives.